and just started coming to this natural conclusion that if you just sprinkle a little bit of tech, life can get easier for some people. If you can sprinkle a lot of tech at the right problems, then man, you can build this machine and make things a hell of a lot easier for a lot of people.
This is the Insurance Technology Podcast, where we bring interesting people from across the insurance ecosystem to discuss and debate technology's impact on the industry. Join us each episode for insights and best practices from industry stewards and tomorrow's innovators. Now, here's your host, Reid Holsworth.
Welcome to the Insurance Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Reid Holsworth. In this episode, we're going to be interviewing Ilya Bodner. Why Ilya? Well, a lot of you know Ilya, you've heard the name. Ilya just recently sold his company to a captive insurer. So we're going to hear a lot about that. But we're also going to hear a lot about Ilya's personal life and how he got to where he is today. In this first episode, we're going to really dig into the history of Ilya, from him immigrating to the United States to the 15th largest city in the country, Columbus, Ohio. We're also going to learn why dealing with VCs is like playing with matches, and why penguins hunt whales. Stay tuned. Ilya, how you doing?
Hello. Thanks for making time for me. I am doing great. It's a beautiful Friday morning here in Columbus, Ohio.
Awesome, man. Have you always been in Columbus?
I immigrated here and I went to high school and then college at Ohio State. So my adult life, yes. Yeah.
The Ohio State.
That's right.
Awesome. So tell me, it's kind of funny. Columbus, Ohio, a lot of insurance there, a lot of Insurtech there, thanks to you, big part of it, right? Tell me, how did you get into insurance and insurance technology?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. I didn't go out looking for it. It sort of found me and kept sucking me right back in. To back up a little bit. So as I just mentioned, I immigrated here to the United States in 1993. And I actually remember my parents showing me a map, they rolled out a map in Tashkent, where I'm from, and saying, hey, we're moving to the 15th largest city in America. And, as a kid, I'm laughing. What the hell is the 15th largest city? That's kind of funny. Someone telling you right now you're moving to China, and you can only name the top three big cities, and you forget about the other ones that have millions of people in it. Similar experience. So I'm like, okay, Columbus, cool. That's kind of near Chicago, I guess. Interesting. But when we got here, realized that this is actually a huge insurance town. Obviously, I didn't have anything to do with it. We just happened to end up here. Retail is a big part of Columbus too. But insurance is everywhere.
What kind of retail?
There's Victoria's Secret, Abercrombie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's all headquartered here. It's part of the L Brands that just kind of switched up actually a couple of days ago. But a lot of cool, trendy brands are here. A ton of it here, DSW, on and on. So, going to college here, and insurance being such a big employer in Columbus, pretty much every other person you meet is working for an insurance company. And that sort of drew me in. We always joke about with my, I moved here with a cohort of immigrants, and we always joke about what if we moved to Omaha? Would we be in the steak business or something very, very traditional for that city's image? So that's how I got into insurance. It was all around me. I really wanted to live the American dream and be my own business owner, be my own boss. And everyone I looked around, all the male and female leaders that I looked up to were in some way, shape, or form small business owners. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I wanted to have my own company, and an insurance agency. What better way to live the American dream than being your own insurance agency owner? And so I went and got my license and opened up my scratch agency and started selling what do we call hand-to-hand combat, home and auto insurance to the neighborhood and the Russian-speaking community and et cetera. And that's really when I first got my big splash into it. And I just said, oh my God, black background, green letters. That's how you do the quoting. There's multiple fax machines that I had to have in my office. And you're just like, what is happening? But it pays really well. You can get, I think at the time they're running a promotion, 55% commission for anything you sell. Yeah, for the first year.
Allstate brand or something, captive, or is it independent?
Yeah, it was,
at the time.
My first big run at it was captive. Yeah, they helped me jumpstart. Yeah,
those captives, huge commissions coming in. Like it's massive.
Yep,
but
that's how they lure you in. And I'm a good salesman, is what I figured out through that process. I'm also not that bad at problem solving when it comes to technology. And when you have to look a person in the eye and explain to him or her why there's this 5 rounds of paperwork and this tedious process of filling and signing and all that jazz, you're thinking to yourself, man, there's got to be a better way to do all this. There just has to. And the truth was, at the time, there wasn't. And I'm not talking about like centuries ago. This was, just like 10 years ago. And so that's how I got into it. Fast forward a little bit. In that experience, I did have to sell a couple of small commercial policies to my customers who had, real estate that they rented out, or a small, bakery, or things like that. And that was even more messed up than selling car and home insurance at the time. And I think that's where the idea for Bull Penguin really first was planted in my head. Is you're thinking like, these numbers are huge. These profits are actually good. The combined for most good insurance companies is good. The commissions for the agents pretty good. Like, the money's good for everybody, but there's just so much inefficiency. And if you can cut that out, the money could be great. And that was the original thought. And then through the years, I just kept on being dragged back into insurance because it is the backbone of our economy. And it's, I like financial businesses. I like money. I like dealing with complex problems. And this is one that touches everybody, like literally everybody. It's required if you're driving in some cases, and required for jobs in other cases. So that's the very short version of it, how I got to be in insurance and in Columbus.
I didn't actually know that story. We've known each other for a long time, and I didn't realize that you're an agency owner to begin with, and you kind of started in that captive world, and you're doing all of that. So that's awesome. In the thick of it from the beginning, hand-to-hand combat. So how did you go from that to Insurtech? Because the first company that I remember that you were involved in was Root, Insurtech wise, right? But
yeah, it's kind of there's 2 words that I go back and laugh about, and that's entrepreneur and Insurtech. Like, when I was slaving away and trying to make a living and build my own agency, the only thing on my mind was small business owner. I wanted to be a business owner, and it was a small business. But later I discovered that it's a little sexier to say entrepreneur. And that's what people call you. So I switched over to that. I didn't honestly even know how to spell it until like a solid year or 2 into it, saying it. And then the second funny one for me was Insurtech. I mean, when I started my agency at the time, it just baffled me that most agents wrote their own postcards and the little pamphlets, you give out to new customers with all the information. They were just folding it in and putting it in those large envelopes and taking over to Pitney Bowes or the post office. Everything is done by hand. And I'm just like, man, like literally you could just write a macro script that could just copy cells from here to there and start running with it. So obviously that's a very primitive explanation of what insurance and technology come together. But at the time, I thought introducing technology into it is just what you have to do. I didn't think twice about it. It was only later that I started Googling and realizing that there's this trend that may or may not stay, and that's writing off the fintech where financial services and technology comes together. So it made sense, insurance and technology. And I think I joined the conversation when people were debating, do you have the E in there? Is it Insurtech with or without the E? Or is it the British way or the English way?
Yeah, totally. People still do that, actually. I hear that every once in a while. But yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I wouldn't say like I, went out and said, I will join the Insurtech movement because this is what I want to do. It was just a natural evolution. I went from selling insurance policies, seeing the inefficiencies there. I partnered up with a guy named Ben Clark, and we at the time were selling services to insurance companies, digital solutions. So we realized how messed up the back end is for most of these companies. Not because it's bad people with poor decisions, but because it's just, years and years worth of code piled on top of each other, and various business decisions. And just started coming to this natural conclusion that if you just sprinkle a little bit of tech, life can get easier for some people. If you can sprinkle a lot of tech at the right problems, then man, you can build this machine and make things a hell of a lot easier for a lot of people. And so that kind of progressed. Because Columbus is such an insurance town, it's not hard to find somebody that actually understands insurance. And I would never make the claim that I fully understand insurance. I'm learning like everyone else, and every new day is interesting and exciting. But there's a huge chunk of people that understand here. And a unique thing happened in Ohio in general, where startups, new ideas started to get a little bit of funding. And that, of course, can help accelerate any idea or company or startup. Maybe in another podcast, not today, but I've certainly learned my lessons of, when you're playing with venture money, it's like playing with matches. Like if you do it right, it keeps you warm, it lights up the room, it gets you going. If you do it wrong, man, it'll just burn off your fingers and your hand. So there's a
great analogy.
So there is a way to do it right and a way to very quickly to do it wrong. I think I've learned all the painful lessons, or a lot of the painful lessons of how not to do it, maybe for another time. But that started happening. And, one thing led to another. And again, just to kind of fast forward to Bull Penguin, I started realizing that, on one end, insurance is a distribution play, right? The more you can distribute, the better. On another end, it's how do you manufacture a product that you don't know the cogs for? So how do you do it profitably? Best underwriters, et cetera. And in the middle, you got slick technology tech that can make it better and connect the two sides. At least that's how I visualize it. And I came to that conclusion pretty early on. So I dabbled with distribution, and that's some of the earlier startups that you know me from, and realized that, okay, well, even if you can find a new, quicker mousetrap and get it out to folks, it's just one part of the problem, because then at the end of the day, you still have to run a profitable company. Right. And then we dabbled with the other end of it, which is, being a full stack insurer, and realize you need a lot of capital. At the end of the day, you're just competing with Warren Buffett's pocket, and that's a pretty big pocket. And came to the realization during that couple of years that for me personally, I sit better in the middle, where I could build technology that can help with the distribution and help with the running of the actual insurance company. And that's really how Bull Penguin came to be, which is a B2B play to help others prevail in whichever side of that equation they sit on. If they're on the distribution and they want to co-combine and sell insurance more profitably, great. We can help you with that. If you're on the carrier side or manufacturer side, if you want to do it better, more efficient, more profitably, great. We can help you connect the dots to the distribution to make it profitably. So I realized that being a connector is the type of technology company that I want to build. And that's my evolution into InsurTech. And of course, as soon as you jump into it, you realize for every one problem you think you're solving, there's like 9 more that go with a lot of question marks around it. And that's kind of the fun of our whole space, is that nobody has the actual solution.
Yeah, well, you guys really went after it. And like you said, the connector piece. I remember the first time I met you,
I was down in Columbus hanging out with our buddy, Jim Hackbarth at Assurex.
Yep.
And he's like, hey, man, I want you to come meet my friend Ilya over at Bold Penguin. And I'm like, Bold, what? What are you talking about? All these damn InsurTechs and they're animals, And so I didn't know you at all. And so he's like, come on, dude, let's go over there. We're going to have lunch with Ilya. I'm like, okay, cool. Literally on the cab ride over there, I'm Googling on my phone, Bold Penguin. What does Bold Penguin do? This and that and the other. And I remember walking into your office and the energy in that office, you guys are just all crushing it, like startup style, but there are a lot of people, a lot going on. And I walked in and a bunch of people were like, oh, hey, you're Reid from Tech Canary, right? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, we love you guys. I'm like, you do? That's great. And they're like, oh yeah, we've integrated with your system. And I'm like, really? And you guys just went in and just started just hooking up. You had somebody, combined customers, whoever it was, and you're like, oh, it's on Salesforce. Let's just make it happen. Didn't even call us, nothing. And that's what I'm talking about. Not that we ever wanted to or needed to or anything. That's how it should be. You guys just went after it. I remember, hanging out with you and meeting your team, and like, these guys are cool. They know what's up, and what an awesome business. I remember going to leave, and some dude was in the kind of just coming in, and I'm like, hey, good to meet you, man. Like, how you doing? And he was one of our customers at Tech Canary I'd never met before, like another one. And so like, yeah, like, oh, we're doing a bunch of stuff, and these guys have already hooked it up, this, that, and the other. And so it was just cool to see, there's so many companies out there that just don't go after it and just don't go do it. It's like, oh, I don't know if we can, and will they let me, and this kind of thing, and like, this, that, and the other. You guys are like, oh no, that's all in the Salesforce stack. Let's just go build this thing and connect it up and make it happen, right? And we had some pretty marquee customers at the time, bigger customers together on the platform, and we worked a lot of customers thereafter together on the platform. And you guys just absolutely rocket ship story, speed that up, freaking crushed it, man. And I mean, I know a lot of people that are involved, have been involved throughout the history of Bold Penguin specifically. Talk about that a little bit, because I know some of the talent that's been involved there, and there's no question that has been a part of the success of overall Bold Penguin. Just the people that have been involved. And then, what's interesting too is you said a minute ago that you got together with Ben. Now, did you get together with Ben just within Bold Penguin, or have you guys been together for a long time prior to that? And some of the other
we're partners for going on 11 years now.
So we know that in this conversation. That makes a lot of sense. Ben's awesome.
Yeah, we like quite literally finish each other's sentences. Sometimes it gets annoying because there's like no point of both of us being on the same Zoom anymore because we know exactly what the other will say. If you walk into our office, even to this day, and I actually went back to the office a couple times now, haven't been there for 15 months, but there's a big sign that says we're a tech company that's people first. And that's been with us from the start. The success of Bold Penguin is the people. Like, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Some people didn't work out. Some opted out. Some we asked to leave. And there's all sorts of that happens when you try to grow something massive. But ask anybody, just randomly stop them on the street, and they'll tell you that there are exceptional people that work really hard and really care about everything. And that's true. We have a no asshole policy. I don't care how good you are. I don't care what kind of prima donna you are and excellent in what you are. If others don't love interacting with you, you're out the door very quickly. And, we've certainly had to handle the heat of, why isn't he here? Or why isn't she there because of that? But at the end of the day, if you get voted off the island, you're out very quickly. So having said that, three things come to mind. When people ask me, what do I do? What does Ben do? What does some of the senior leadership do? I always tell them all the time, we split our time between being a chief believer and chief recruiter. Nothing happens without amazing people. And early on, we made a conscious decision to recruit the best money could buy. And we tried extremely carefully not to get insurance people in the door. So it's actually kind of funny when you said like we went at it and integrated with Tech Canary and blah, blah, blah. You didn't even know about the customer. The truth is most of those people didn't know anything about insurance. Like really, just maybe the 20-minute spiel that I'd give them during onboarding or something. A couple of us, of course, we were insurance agents and live it firsthand, but we just didn't want to surround ourselves with a bunch of people that would tell us, no, it can't be done because it's done like this, or no, we've tried, but exchanges were tied 3 times. Man, the amount of times I've heard that in the beginning, exchanges were tried and they didn't work. Why is yours better? We just didn't want to be surrounded by that kind of energy. So we hired best, brightest, go-getters, self-starters. My 3 interview questions are, have you ever been in a small business? Have you ever been in a startup? Have you ever led and run your own initiative? Sometimes I throw in, have you ever been part of a sports team? But that's just if that needs to be happened. So we hired people that didn't know about insurance and just went in and thought logically, like, why does this take an hour to make a full trip? Like, that's just stupid. Like, really, it's just dumb. Like, and we weren't afraid to say words like that. It's like I send an application and I wait for someone to email me back. It's like, what? What are we in high school again? Like, no, that doesn't work like that. You push a button and a computer reads it, and there could be a rejection or an acceptance. I mean, that's just how it should be. So we just didn't tolerate this nonsense of this is how the world should go, and didn't break rules, but certainly didn't accept the status quo at all. Period. End of story. And it's because of those kind of exception people that we were able to make headway. Now, the other thing is our business plan, and we thought about this for a while in the beginning, was an enterprise solutions, an enterprise platform, an enterprise sales company. Because we came to this realization pretty early on, we can have hundreds of smaller clients or thousands of smaller clients that add up to something, or we can just get these massive whales, which is funny if you think about penguins taking down a whale, that drive distribution, that really move the needle. And we felt like we would bend over backwards for them in order to what we call battle test it, get the type of usage that we want. So we made a decision pretty early on that, we're not taking no for an answer, and we would be working with the biggest names, the biggest drivers in the space. And that's changed now since most of the biggest names are on the Bold Penguin infrastructure. But at the time, for the first 5 years of our existence, certainly for the first 36 months, it was get the biggest names, get the biggest customers, get the biggest movers, not just the logo, but the ones that actually have the heaviest usage in small commercial. So I'd say that's a big credit. And the people that we had surrounded totally rallied around it. And I'd say the last thing to that, why it was exciting, I anyone that's interviewed with me or with Ben or with Mark or any of the folks early on knew that part of our interview process was, hey, we're doing this to sell the company in 5 years. Everything you do every morning when you wake up, you got to be thinking, is this going to help drive enterprise value so we could sell it in 5 years?
Yeah.
Pretty open with everyone. Now that really turned away a lot of people because they're like, well, what do you mean? I won't have a job, or how, the instability, they just couldn't handle the what ifs. But through that natural self-selection, we were able to attract people that did think like that and were comfortable with that and did rally around that. And that gave us a purpose greater than, what we were doing day to day, that I think helped really just, haul, not allowed to cuss on the show, I'm imagining, but really go far and fast together.
That's super ballsy, dude. As a startup going after the elephants and going elephant hunting. That's like most companies that I've known that have done that have gone out and raised huge sums of money because it's very expensive and the sales cycles are really long to get those guys. But you took down some of those big guys, not all of them in the beginning. So,
right.
but the real revenue that you were generating was coming from the big dogs. And that is really scary, especially for an investor too, especially when you start to land, you have 3 customers that are controlling all of your revenue, 99% of your revenue, whatever it may be. That's a scary thing. It's hard to go after, it's hard to close, and it's hard to manage once you do, because they know, typically, depends on the partner, depends on the customer. I call customer.
Oh, they
partner.
know they have you by the throat.
They know what's tough about that. Like you're a tough dude, and I think that's why this works. I'm the same way. A lot of people can be very meek around C-level execs at that level, and they just push them around. Like, you got to be like, listen, man, I got to feed my family here. Like, come on, dude. And you got to have those serious conversations with those people sometimes. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? That's gnarly, man.
I mean, you give them an inch, they take a mile, and most people don't do it because they're evil. They just let it slip, and then one thing leads to another, and you start off talking about a $1 million project that turns into a $50,000 proof of concept very quickly, because that's what people at every level in an organization are supposed to do: beat down the vendor. Yeah, I think a lot of this, Bull Penguin is in a lot of ways a outer layer for me, Ben, and some of the early executives. Like, it's a reflection of who we are. We're not afraid to say we don't do pilots. That's just silly. Dipping toe in the water. Are you kidding me? Like, what is happening with the rest of the body when your toes in the water? What does that even? That doesn't even make any sense to me. So we had to stand our ground and say, look, if we're going to do something in a big way, we're going to do it together. And if the answer is no, then fine. Like, we can live without you. Don't you worry. The truth is, big organizations always come back around because we weren't selling something that's nonsense. We were offering a solution that works. Getting the first customer was the hardest thing. But once we had the first customer, and I think it's pretty public now how big the first customer was and how heavily they jumped into using our platform, the proof was in the pudding. Like, we didn't have to, after that, try to convince anybody or try to, brown nose our way into it. We were just like, look, do you want to be as successful or not? And I don't really care about the million excuses you have that you're in year 20 of your Guidewire installation or whatever the excuse was. You have the budget. You're a big enough company, and you certainly want to grow. That's what companies do. So we definitely had that. Now, yeah, I could sit here and tell you how awesome and how strong-willed we are, and it's all a happy, successful story in the end, which thank God it was. But in the moment, man, like, I'm talking to you right now, and I remember logging into our Huntington checking account, bank that we use, looking at how much money is in there, and just kind of like thinking in my head, how much longer, these are 6 to 18 month sales cycle after you figure out who the right person to work with. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do for payroll? Oh man, like, I don't want to take out more of my money. Do I loan it? Do I borrow it? Like, how do I even explain it to investors? Why would they throw bad money? There was just a lot of, oh my God, nights. So all those stories are true. Logging into your checking account and saying, man, I just don't have enough for payroll. What the hell are we going to do? Those stories about people like literally losing sleep. I would wake up at 1 a.m, and I know many others on our team felt the same way. And they're like continuing the meeting they had, at 1 o'clock during the day in their head, and they just can't go back to sleep. And we're back on Slack and we're talking to each other. It's hard work, but it is incredibly rewarding. Honestly, I'm getting the chills just by talking about it. It's like that rush of being in the fog of war. So it is for a startup, oftentimes a dangerous move, a costly move. You have to have a lot of patience. You have to have a lot of nerves. I tell people all the time, it's not for the faint of heart at all. You have to be able to keep a poker face the entire time, all the way through. Believe in yourself. Don't compromise. Be genuine. And if you're really building a solution and working hard with a group of people that are believers in the same thing, be patient enough and it'll come back around. And that's what we did, and worked out. And thank goodness it does. It doesn't always work out that way.
I like that point you made. It's really powerful for the audience to catch that, because it's so true. And what you said, that the big ones will always come back around, and they do. It's so true. Early on, I've burned a couple big bridges, not like in a bad way, just showing up as a rookie, right? We just weren't ready for something like that. And you're better off, again, I'm not I don't believe that you should gold plate anything, really. I mean, sometimes you'll get there, and that's ultimately where you want to end up. But you can't think about, I'm going to gold plate it and then release that, right? So don't like overanalyze and never go to the big ones because you think you're going to fail coming into it. But show up prepared and be ready. And when you're ready, go after it. And if they feel that you're not ready, they'll come back around. It's all good.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
thanks for pointing that out. I mean, having the right solution or having a solution that's trending towards being right is critical. You can't go in there just completely off of smoke screen and PowerPoints. You have to have a solution, the right approach, the right team, the right words. Yeah, going in as making a rookie mistake of just saying, "Oh yeah, we could do that for $5," is and over promising on the timeline is where you get yourself into trouble. So we tried very hard to stay away from that. And like you, we totally screwed up opportunities and lost some to vendors that had no business of being in that space.
yeah,
What was exceptional for Bull Penguin, and I think again, ask any one of our clients or any of the employees or anyone that's been involved or is still involved. The one thing that separated us from everybody else is the speed of product deployment. No matter what, the good and the bad and the dirty and the good, the bad and the ugly, no matter what, on a weekly or every 2 weeks basis, Bull Penguin platform, the actual code base, had something new that was fully working, battle tested and in production for others to use. And our speed, not all features were wildly used, but the speed of iteration, the fact that every month you look at Bull Penguin and it's something bigger and better and just constantly evolving is what separated us, because we had something new, something fresh, something flexible, and we just never slow down. In fact, even during COVID, we sped up. I often post about this on LinkedIn. The speed of production deployment gone up, and the number of deployments went up, and the features and the storyboards, everything got richer and got a lot more thickness to it. That is why they come back around. Because when you talk to company X 6 months later that may have taken a pass because you screwed something up, sees that our product wasn't static. It got better. It got more flexible. It had more usage. It had more adoption. It had more clients. It had more functionality, et cetera, et cetera.
That goes back to the culture, Ilya, what you said before. That's you guys hiring people and saying, listen, we're here to sell this business in 5 years. It is what it is. And look, every product company, somebody told me a long time ago that in software and in technology, really early on in my career, they told me this. It's not about, everybody has bugs, everybody has problems, but it's how you respond and how quickly you respond to those as an organization. And if there's a problem, like you said, you're onboarding some large customer, this and that and the other, and big, huge companies are investing in little itty bitty two MacBook Pro, two dudes in a MacBook Pro startups every day, right? But it's the ones that just persevere and just push. Here's a problem, fix it. It's adapt and overcome, execute over and over and over and over again, right? And you guys did that. You persevered, and you kept pushing, and you kept iterating. You kept adding new features, functionality, and frankly, like I've known you from those early days, and kind of pivoted your model throughout that as to, maybe pivot's not the right word, but kind of moved around through, and it was more fluid in that way. We
were very firm. We were very firm, but also very flexible with our product. Like I said in the very beginning of this podcast, I don't pretend like I know everything about insurance, and nobody does. If a customer comes to us and they're like, yeah, we like the idea, we want to make money on small commercial, we like all this is true, but this is kind of a different way of how we distribute it, and we have this partnership, this affinity, we need it plugged in a certain different way. We are not going to try to squeeze you into our path. We will figure out a way. Well, it's got to be a platform, right? So we got to build for one and sell to many, but we'll figure out a path to make it so that it's flexible enough so that it works for you. And that's what you mean. I think what you mean by we've adapted over the years. We've always looked at it like we're never going to build the mousetrap that everyone comes and uses. It just isn't possible. But if you think about the open source, the API, the flexibility, the different use cases way of it, at the core, you're building a platform, you can win and you should win. And so we just hauled ass and try to get everyone all the different things they need, V1, V2 of many things, but get it going.
It's interesting just kind of thinking about where you've taken the business and just the rocket ship of it. And again, I keep going back to the people, and, the people that you brought in on the board, people that were investors, the team that you built, it's pretty amazing. And it's funny too, looking back on it, one of your very early investors, I'm not going to name names, very early investors, ultimately became the big exit, right? And it was kind of, it was, and they loved you.
Well, you kind of gave it away, but yeah. Yeah. But I think, so
they were involved really early on, like really early.
Yeah. So three things on that, because it does tie into what we're doing now. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we're a big enterprise platform, big enterprise sales company. And very early on, we got some of the biggest names to use it. And so, we often measure how many quote starts happen on a monthly basis. Very quickly, we got to be approaching 100,000 quote starts a month. That means that 100,000 quotes are being started using the Bull Penguin platform for small commercial only. To put it in comparison, like there's a lot of insurance companies that don't get 100,000 in a year. We were getting that on a month. And so that took notice, and, our gross margin was good. And the way we ran it, even though we had a long sales cycle, at that time, we started getting into a cadence that pretty much every 6 months, something was popping. Right, because we had enough lines out there, and even though they take a solid year or 2 or 3 in some cases, things were starting to roll. We then realized we needed to give more flexibility. So not everyone wants to log into our agent portal. We actually renamed it to be our agent terminal. People want to have their own skins. People wanted to have their own storefronts. People wanted to have hooks into their own partnerships. So we rolled out an SDK, or a more technical way of integrating with us, using our carrier integration engine behind the scenes and all the rules that are built there to kind of like move up and down their dials the way they want to. And that's been a solid run. And then we started saying, okay, look, we've conquered the big names, not in a colonialization type of approach where we're trying to make our own empire here, but in a way that makes sense for them. Now we got to go one click lower. Let's go and talk to brokers and agents. And we did really well there too. And now that we captured a pretty big chunk of that market and things are rolling there, we're dropping back even lower, by volume usage, and starting to offer a solution to independent agents. Two-person shop, one-person shop. Reid, I know you were an agent at one point. I was too. Anyone that just needs a quick and easy way to quote small commercial and knows that it's reliable, it's trustworthy, it's secure, it gives access to the markets, it doesn't eat away at their commissions, but something they can log into once a month, once a year, once every couple of days, whatever. And so when we made that claim that we're starting to go after the IA channel in a serious way, we said it'll take us about a year to build a product that's good and out to market. We actually rolled out that solution end of last year, end of 2020. But that caught the eye of a lot of people. And they said, okay, we get the choice model is the future, especially in the IA channel. We want to be able to harness that kind of software and technology. And that caught the eye of a lot of people. That made, more funding, more choices, more possibilities happen for us. And so today, I'm proud to talk about our agent terminal. You can go to terminal.bullpenguin.com and sign up and see how it works. It's got access to all the markets. You can whiz through a quote in basically 90 seconds. If it's more complicated, in like 60 seconds. If it's not, you type in a name and get right back. It doesn't sort by price. For the agents, you can sort it by all sorts of factors, use your own appointments. It's got a good business classification tool, so you can know what's qualified and what's not up front. So it works. It took us a while to build that, but when we were starting to share that, hey, we're going after the IA in a pretty material way, that's when I would say things went from, you're a car guy, things went from fifth gear to sixth gear. And you're just like, boom, you're like, oh my God, like we're really moving now at a top speed. And that's the exciting thing. So last year and this year was all about maintaining business, growing organically, which was doubling on its own, which is phenomenal. Keeping that culture of you're always putting something into production, period, end of story. You're evolving the product. Did you do that today? No, go and do that. Let's talk about something else afterwards. As long as we're able to maintain that kind of high velocity, high growth from a product development standpoint, we're doing well. And in addition to that, we're starting to capture the other end of the market, which is the IAs, which is for us kind of the cherry on top to have complete hands around the small commercial market. And so from back to your original point about investors and returns and how we ended up where we are, our gross margins were getting better. Our top line was getting better. We were getting very smart about how we allocate resources internally for what I call build for one, sell to many. We were getting excellent in how we're running our engineering team. And at this point, we had a name, right? It wasn't Reid Googling us in the back of an Uber. It was more of people have heard about Bold Penguin. They just don't know exactly what it means for them. So we were transitioning from brand awareness to actually product awareness company. And it just felt so good and still feels good about going and growing like that. So it's just kind of an interesting time. Even with COVID, things accelerated because we were a digital platform.
Wow, that was a really great first episode. It's funny to hear that being an entrepreneur is sexier than being a small business owner. And I'm glad that Ilya now knows how to spell it. I frankly don't still, but I try. Thank God for spell check. In the next episode, we'll look at his company today. Where's he going next? What's next for Bold Penguin? And what's next for Ilya? Stay tuned.